You, all that pride, it'll get us all killed. That pride will get us killed. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about pride. And the reason why we're going to talk about pride is because pride is normally seen as a positive thing. However, I see it as something that's impacting a lot of negative situations that are going on around the world. And we see them as microcosms in our own individual life, but I think when that pride gets escalated, it turns into what becomes a justification for war, for fighting, for harming each other, for hurting each other, and for a lot of things that we wouldn't otherwise be okay with if we didn't prioritize our pride. So I wrote down a few notes here that I'm going to every now and then look down at just because I want to make sure that I cover everything. But really just wanted to have this conversation because when you look for solutions, it's one thing to look for problems. And I think that's what happens when you take such pride in one view, one perspective. We see this across the board, whether it comes to the different wars that are going on. Israel, Palestine, Russia, Ukraine, the tariff issue between U.S. and Canada and U.S. and Mexico. We see this in Democrats versus Republicans. We see this in street gangs. We see this in, I don't know if mafia gangs are included in street gangs, but we see this in a lot of criminal organizations and legal organizations. Like I said, political parties, religions. We see this across the board where people will take so much pride in what they believe in and how they see the world that they will justify and excuse behavior that's going to lead to the destruction of other people and ultimately, in my opinion, the destruction of us all. So when we look at pride, and like I said, I look at it from a solution standpoint. So when you look at it from a solution standpoint, you realize that when you're having conversations with people that are on either side of the argument, whether we're talking about wars or political parties or gangs, whatever, they are so set in their ways to where they can only see the particular issue or the world in a lot of ways through their lens. And they'll justify removing all logic from a situation. They'll justify certain things that they wouldn't be okay with happening to them and their people just based on the fact that they have a certain allegiance to their group. And that allegiance to their group in a lot of ways, this is just all my opinion, it compromises our judgment. It compromises our judgment by pretty much us all, regardless of what side you're on, saying, well, we're allowed to do that because they did this. It goes back to that, the things that we're learning as little kids in school. Well, he hit me, so I hit him. That eye for an eye mentality, that pride, oh, somebody hit me, so I got to get my get back. It's very easy for us to see this when it comes to like street gangs, where it's like, bro, you don't see what's happening. Blood's going to kill a Crip, Crip kill a blood. You don't see this cycle just continuing until somebody decides, hey, we're going to push that pride to the side because it's really only harming everybody. It's harming people on your side and it's harming people on our side. When we have that pride, it allows us to move with a certain blindness where, somebody gets so mad where they're only seeing red. That's what happens when you take so much pride in something. And we preach humility in certain areas of our life. And maybe that's what it should be applied to. Because even when I used to hear the term humble, and when you look it up and it says to put yourself beneath something or to see yourself as beneath, I get it. I get it. And I think it needs to be applied in a lot of these areas where we have so much pride to justify doing all these things that are really evil things. We would consider them as evil. The only reason why we don't consider them as evil is because we feel like we're getting justice or getting our get back. And every side can ultimately feel that they're getting their get back. It'll get to the point. I remember in Game of Thrones, they talked about this where they were discussing, I forget who it was. It was the lady that should have been queen. I forget. And they were discussing the fact that eventually nobody even remembers how the war started. There's so many stories that'll get thrown out there. Nobody knows where it started. But both sides now are just justified in doing whatever it takes and always upping the ante. So as one side ups the ante, what ends up happening? Then the other side, they feel that they need to get a certain level of justice that is either at that same level or in a lot of times greater than, right? So what ends up happening? No solution. And once we have war, and once we have this mentality where it's an eye for an eye, ultimately, we're going to run out of eyes. Ultimately, humanity is going to be screwed. And the reason why I said earlier that we see pride negatively impacting us in our, like in microcosms in our individual life. You know, how does pride impact us? How does pride impact us? You know, a lot of times we celebrate it, but even if you look at a lot of the celebrations that we do take pride in, a lot of times it makes us not even realize how what we're taking pride in is impacting other people because we're just standing on pushing what we want to push. So like I said, how does it impact us? Think about personal development. When you have so much pride in something where you're no longer coachable, you feel like you can no longer learn anything. Oh, I got pride and I take pride in who I am and what I stand on and what I'm capable of. This is where that humility term comes in, right? This is where that humility comes in. And when you think back to, I don't know, a teacher, let's say going back to school where a teacher separates two kids who are getting into it. What you're really doing is and why a lot of kids get embarrassed, especially when they feel like somebody else got the best of them, is because you're being humbled when that teacher breaks it up. Especially you get a teacher to throw you against y'all were just so fighting, trying to play strong. And then that teacher throwing you against the wall. It could be a humbling experience. And maybe that's not the best example. And maybe I should just speak on real examples, but I don't necessarily want to speak on real examples because people have so much daggone pride that once you start bringing up some of these topics, people just start seeing red. People just start seeing red. And some of the things that I wrote as far as what does pride do? And matter of fact, before we get into what does pride do, I want to look at more about how it impacts us. Think about it from a political standpoint. Democrats and Republicans, we'll be so prideful in how strong we support Trump. We'll be so prideful in how strong we oppose Trump. That typically what ends up happening, people get so radicalized to where they're so emotionally triggered that they're no longer able to see things from a logical perspective. They're no longer able to sit down and say, hey, let's come to some sort of common ground. You know, what can we agree on? What works best? For whether it's talking about abortion, whether it's talking about what's a big issue in the government, whether it's talking about boys playing sports against women, whether it's any of these issues that become radicalized to where you have people all the way on that side and all the way on that side. There's no common ground because you're so prideful. You're so prideful because your ego gets in the way. And that's where that humbleness needs to come in. You're so prideful in your Democrat and your stance that you think that you're smarter. You know what's best for the American people. You know all these things, and the Republicans do it on their side. And where does that end up getting us? It ends up getting us exactly where we are right now, to where we spend more time trying to oppose the other side than actually trying to reach some sort of common ground and a solution for the American people. Right? Isn't that what your job is supposed to do as politicians? That's what your job is, right? To serve the American people. Think back to even with the street gangs, to what the Bloods started as, or the Crips started as. These started as community organizations, right? Community organizations that were providing breakfast to the community, protection to the community, education to the community. A lot of these things that are pivotal to a community succeeding. But what did it turn into based on pride? I wasn't there. I don't know what exactly happened, but I can imagine that There was a split because one person thought that their way of doing things was better than that person's way of doing things. And then there's a group of people that follow that person, a group of people that follow that person. They both take pride in their side. And then what ends up happening? You start throwing all those rules that you used to stand by, all those codes that you used to stand by. You start throwing them at the window when now you see that person that you used to rock with as an enemy who used to be your friend. We see this. This is the same thing with politics. We're supposed to be on the same side. The Democrats and Republicans, think about what their job is. Their job is to, they are supposed to be a mastermind, right? What exactly is a mastermind? It's when a group of people come together with a common cause, right? A common cause. They got a common cause and want to work together to fulfill that cause, to solve a particular problem. That's what it's supposed to be. That's what a mastermind is. That's when you put a group of people together and they're able to do, what's the word that I'm looking for? They're able to compound the things that they would do just as individuals. And when they come together, now you get a compounding effect to where now, let's say you take three people and you look at their individual work. And if you added those three people's work up as individuals, then they would get X. But when you have those three people working together as a group instead of individuals, they would get an outcome that's far greater than X. That's what a mastermind is. So that's what our government is supposed to serve as, Democrats and Republicans. And what ends up happening? This group takes so much pride in we see the world this way. We represent this. We represent the people. We know what's best. To the point where they don't even end up listening to their own support, like their base. Because the ego plays such a big role where you have to question yourself. And it actually came up in this movie that I was watching, King Arthur. There's a dope part of King Arthur where King Arthur seems to be making an emotional decision to enter a battle that they know they can't win. And Lancelot asked Arthur, he says, this is before he was Arthur. This is just when he was leading the knights. He wasn't always a king. Just so, yeah, I don't know, all y'all are into that. But Lancelot says, is this, he says something like, is this Rome's quest or this England's quest? I think it was Rome's quest. Or is this Arthur's quest? That's what happens with a lot of these political leaders. Is this America's quest or is this Trump's quest? Is this America's quest or is this Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, Jasmine Crockett, whoever is pushing for leadership on that side, AOC, across the board, right? Whose quest is this? What are we prioritizing? What are we prioritizing? I was listening to, or I actually got the opportunity to go see Jordan Peterson yesterday in person. And he said something that I'm going to completely mix up. But as it relates to this, it's like, what is your desire? Once you determine what is your desire, what's your ultimate goal, then the rest should be aligned with that. So if the ultimate goal is to work together to put America in the best possible position that America can be in for American citizens, then all that pride amongst your own individual or political parties should be put to the side, with the main goal always being prioritized of Republicans and Democrats working together for the common cause and the common good of America. Pride will get us killed. So another thing that I jotted down is like, what does pride do? We already went over this. It causes us to throw away our principles, throw away our morals, mix up our priorities, right? Mix up our priorities, allow ego to get in the way. All these different things where we're led by the wrong things rather than being led by what the common goal was supposed to be. We end up, what ends up happening is if we put up the amount of energy that we spend arguing with each other, that our way is the right way, if we put that energy into just going with either solution, we'd probably be in a better place than we end up now, where we're just fighting each other. Think about it. If we put the amount of time, effort, and energy that we spend fighting each other as far as this is the right way, no, this is the right way, if we would have just put that time, effort, and energy into just choosing one way or choosing some sort of common ground, then we would already have our problems being fixed. But the problem with that is, when it comes to politics, is that that would take away the power that becomes so intoxicating with a lot of these leaders. See, the leaders, they become intoxicated with the power that comes along with their base feeling that they are the only people that can help solve their issue. Right? If I'm a Democrat, I don't want my followers looking at Republicans like saying favorable things about them, saying, oh, yeah, no, those Republicans make sense. No, I'm a selfish Democrat, right? All I care about is power. And Republicans on the same way. All right. It works both ways. So therefore, as a Republican, I'm sitting here like, nah, I don't want you liking the Republicans. That's going to take away your allegiance to me. See, this is why we have to be the checks and balance system to these extremely radicalized and prideful leaders that we call our politicians. What else did I write? It doesn't allow you to see the other side's perspective. It doesn't allow you to see the world through the lens that the other side sees it through. And that can become a real issue. If I'm not able to see, like, you ever been in a situation where you do something wrong, or you don't think it's wrong, right? You're just so blinded by your own agenda to where then you sit down with somebody and you guys both come with a certain level of humility, right? Both come and say, you know what, I could have done this better. Like this is why I did it. I'm not trying to justify it, but this is what I was thinking. I allowed my pride to get in the way. If both sides do that, what tends to happen? What tends to happen? Now I see, damn, I wasn't even able to see it from your perspective. Yo, that does make sense. I could see how that would make you move in that particular way. Yo, I didn't see it from your perspective. Based on your perspective, based on, the situation, the people that are pushing you and the things that they need, I can understand why you would be more so standing on that. When we do not have that ability to see the other person's perspective based on us being so blindly prideful, it not only impacts us, but it impacts our loved ones. All you got to do is go back to the street gangs. It's not just the people that are getting hurt that are getting hurt. It's not the people that are just getting shot that are getting hurt. It's the entire family. Now you're putting the younger generation in the same position to continue this war. Look at what's going on between Israel and Palestine. How many hundreds of years need to keep going by with them being at war? With that being such a toxic environment, that the one thing that all the religious groups that are primarily in that area can agree on is that it's a holy land. So how does the quote unquote holy land become one of the most toxic places in the world? And in my opinion, it's because, well, I'm not saying it's solely because of pride, but I think pride plays an issue. Now, I'm not going to sit here and play the blame game, well, this group's pride, that group's pride, because it doesn't do us any good. At a certain point in time, it just has to say, yo, forget what happened. It's going on enough. What do you want to make sure? You ever be in school where it's like, oh, you hit me, I want to get the last hit. What do you want to get the last hit? What are we? Okay, if both sides continue to just try to get the last hit, what is going to end up happening? Then you end up with one person or a group. I don't know. I don't know. You end up with a never ending war, which is, maybe case in point is the exact thing that we're seeing right now. And it's all of humanity. It's not just Israel, Palestine. It's all of humanity. Pride will get us all killed. Pride will destroy us all. Pride will have us getting in our own way of being successful. Pride will have us not being able to see things from a humane standpoint and turn back into these animalistic barbarians that we sometimes turn into for what? For what? It does us no good. So these are just some of the things that were on my mind. Hopefully we can, hear this message and you guys share with me your thoughts as well, because I want to hear your thoughts on it. But I mean, it's these are some of those things that the more I learn, the more I realize it's simple, but not easy. These things We act as if they're complicated, but the solutions, just stop. Now that's simple, but that's not easy. Work together, figure out things where everybody can have some sort of, agreement, to where everybody can feel prideful about what they're walking away from, the agreement, the treaty. Because if not, just look around. Whether it's our politics, is it going to get better? No. Is it different wars that we're seeing throughout the world? Probably not. Are we going to be able to turn into the people that we need to become if we got so much pride and feel like we've already arrived and feel like we're already that? Nah. So just something to think about. Just something to think about. More humility, less pride, and more clarity. And I think that clarity will allow us to prioritize the things that we would prioritize if we weren't looking at things with that blind fury that pride will sometimes lead us to. So that's all I got for y'all today. Make sure that you like and subscribe. If you got any value from the video, comment, share your thoughts. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts. I really do always take heed to them, because the goal is to bring everybody together and elevate. That's always going to be the goal. So on that note, I'll see y'all soon. Ew.